No deal. After all the talk in Congress about police reform after the murder of George Floyd and the summer of protests, negotiations on that reform have collapsed. Earlier today, lead Democratic negotiator Senator Cory and Congresswoman Karen Bass both released statements confirming that bipartisan efforts to enact new police reforms have officially ended with no deal. According to the Wall Street Journal, Booker said he and Congresswoman Bass made Senator Scott their final offer during a meeting Tuesday, a proposal the Democrats felt was a bare minimum of what could be accepted at that point. After Scott failed to accept that offer, Booker let Scott know today that they were officially done negotiating. According to the offer the Wall Street Journal says they reviewed, it included reducing officers' use of chokeholds, limiting the transfer of military equipment to local departments, and creating a database of information about complaints against officers and their discipline. There was no mention of ending qualified immunity, which was a key sticking point for Democrats. Congresswoman Karen Bass told Politico she blamed police unions' infighting in part for not being able to finalize a deal, saying this: "It wasn't like there was a big rupture, but at a certain point, you have to recognize that you're just spinning your wheels." President Biden released this statement about the breakdown of talks, which read in part, "Regrettably, Senate Republicans rejected enacting modest reforms which even the previous president had supported, while refusing to take action on key issues that many in law enforcement were willing to address. The White House will continue to consult with the civil rights and law enforcement communities, as well as victims' families, to define a path forward, including through potential further executive actions I can take to advance our efforts to live up to the American ideal of equal justice under the law." Joining me now to discuss is Congresswoman Karen Bass and the co-founder and CEO of the Center for Policing Equity, Phillip Atiba Goff. So, Karen Bass, what was the final straw?
Well, I don't know that there was one thing, for example. It was definitely not about qualified immunity. I think the challenge was Senator Booker could never get Senator Scott to yes. And the bill had been watered down so much by the time they were at the final stages that we would not have put George Floyd's name on the bill. And so at some point you have to say, if nothing is okay, then that means it's over. We're not going to get anywhere. And when we met with Senator Scott yesterday, I believe that Senator Booker just reached the point of saying that we're going around and around and around over the same handful of issues and never getting to yes. And so I basically have to end the negotiations. Now, we are calling on the president and the administration to use the power of the presidency to enact additional executive orders.
So, Phillip, what does this say in the grand scheme of things that, there was all of this momentum going into making something on the federal level change and be substantial, and that it now looks like it's not going to happen?
Yeah, I think it means that something's really broken in the way that we're doing our politics. Representative Bass, who's been a champion on this for years and years, I think is being a little bit modest. They were able to bring together a coalition of folks that included leading police chiefs, city mayors, activists, who all said, hey, we could take a half loaf here. We don't have to have the whole thing, but here are some things that are going to keep communities safer, that will keep law enforcement safer, and that will get bad officers out of the profession. Right? Some bare minimum things that a vast majority of folks across this country, Democrat and Republican, can all agree with. And by the way, included some things from the last administration. And even that wasn't going to be enough. So the last time that you and I were talking about this, Charles, we talked about whether or not we could take a half loaf, and that there's a difference between a half loaf and crumbs. That's really what we're talking about right now. The difference between a half loaf and crumbs. And even though the vast majority of folks who live in this country and the folks who care about these issues say this is a bare minimum and there is a path forward on this, our politics can't get there. And that says that we need to have more leaders like Representative Bass.
Representative Bass, what do you say to the people who say something is better than nothing? You take something rather than walk away from the table. What do you say to those people?
Well, I would agree with that, but you have to have something. You have to have something. And really, the floor, the absolute floor, was the Trump executive order. And you can't go to the right, or you can't water down the Trump executive order, because the Trump executive order is actually in effect. The Biden administration did not rescind it. So if you're going to do less than the Trump executive order, you were talking about not something, you were talking about moving the needle backwards. And that is unacceptable. I think what happened is the moment passed. We needed to pass this legislation when there were hundreds of thousands of people on the street. And crime cycles, that is normal. That is how it always happens. And I think the Republicans, and I think law enforcement, some parts of law enforcement, seized on that during the last election and said that the reason why crime was cycling up was because of police reform, because we had demoralized the police, we had discouraged the police, we had tied their hands. And so if you want crime to go down, you need to leave the police alone and allow them to do the job of policing, regardless of the fact that there is no accountability and no transparency.
So Phil, do you think, speaking of the time having passed, do you think that that was actually strategy on the part of Republicans, that they simply waited it out, waited for the moment to cool down enough that they could walk away and say we will accept almost nothing?
Given the history of inaction on issues that lead towards black liberation, it's tempting to think that this really was malicious. Having had a chance to speak with members on both sides of the aisle during this last year, I think that we should resist that temptation. I think there was real energy to try and get something done, and that didn't happen during the course of the last summer. And then after that, I mean, Representative Bass is right again. Without the pressure, without the feeling like, if we don't do something, people are going to be staring at us and there will be consequences for us, I think there wasn't enough motivation to meet in places that, frankly, would be the bare minimum for reasonable people, from activists to police chiefs, at saying this is what needs to change in the way that we keep communities safe. So I don't think we need to have maliciousness that scuttled this, when we have just simply a lack of motivation from some folks who, sadly, I wish were more motivated.
So, Representative Bass, do you lay this failure at the feet of Tim Scott or at the entire Republican Senate?
Well, I don't lay it just at the feet of Tim Scott. I mean, Tim Scott's job was to take this and get the 10 additional votes. I think if his leadership really wanted it to happen, I think they would have pushed. So, I think I have to look at the Senate and the way the Senate functions, period. It's not just police reform. You just take your pick of bills that are laying and dying over in the Senate because you need the 10 votes. So we need to think about that. We need to think about the filibuster. We need to think about the legacy of the Biden administration, and is McConnell going to do to Biden what he tried to do to Obama, which is essentially try to make his presidency fail.
Representative Karen Bass and Phillip Atiba Goff, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.